Welcome to the Irresistible Marketing Pod, the podcast that wants you to be able to handle it when that massive success hits you. I'm your host, Issa Gauchi, your marketing confidence cheerleader and owner of the Issa Messaging digital marketing agency for small business baddies such as yourself. Today, we're going to talk about going viral. It seems like every entrepreneur wants to, but not everyone is emotionally prepared to be that visible and that exposed to other people's reactions and judgments. Also, if you're still equating followers with dollars, you're in for a rude awakening. They aren't at all the same thing. But don't worry, I've got the perfect guest to give you the inside scoop on what it's like to go viral many, many times over. Friend of the show and of me, and returning guest, Alyssa Zander graciously dropped by to share her personal experience of being seen by literally millions and millions of people and how she updated her self-care, boundaries, and reactions to be able to handle it. Alyssa is a codependency and relationship coach, host of the wildly popular Codependency Alchemy, the podcast, and author of my favorite book of poetry, Healing the Mother Wound with Mother Earth. Here's our conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, Alyssa. Welcome back to the Irresistible Marketing Pod.
Thank you so much for having me, Issa. I love having these chats with you.
Likewise. Would you mind introducing yourself to the good people before we dive into the good stuff?
Absolutely. After doing this so many times, I'm still like, what do I say? So my name's Alyssa Zander. I'm a codependency and relationship coach. I facilitate a membership also called Codependency Alchemy, which is the same as my podcast, Codependency Alchemy.
So I'm so excited to talk to Alyssa today because I myself and several of my clients are right in the middle of a business up level where suddenly we're navigating being visible on a whole new scale, a lot more people paying attention to what we do, counting on us, having expectations on us. And even though these are goals we've been working for, and we're really happy that we've reached these milestones where a lot of us are noticing our nervous systems are having sort of a reaction to
Mm-hmm.
this new
Yeah.
state. And Alyssa was kind enough to come teach the squad, which is my group marketing confidence cheerleading program, about the experience of going viral. And she has at this point several times over, like literally millions of eyes on her any given day. And so she was kind enough to be willing to tell the podcast listeners about this as well. So, Alyssa, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit of the story of what was the experience like to go viral on that scale for the first time, and how did it affect you?
hmm Yeah, so the platform that I went viral on first was TikTok. And the first time that I went viral, and when I say viral, I mean, yes, millions of views. Um, that broke me. Like, there's no pretty way of saying it. Like, it broke me down, and I basically ran. Like, I just ran from the whole shebang. I went from posting every single day, sometimes even multiple times a day, because I was really challenging myself to get comfortable creating content. And when you go viral, you get in front of not only the people that you're hoping and intending and desiring to get in front of, you're also getting in front of the people that, want have something to say about what you're talking about and have maybe negative things to say, and the trolls and the people who want to call you a bad person and all of these things. So the first time that one of my pieces of content went viral, it was around people pleasing and how it is a trauma response, but typically is like a form of manipulation. And, language around that, people don't like manipulation as a word, let alone to be told that maybe what they're doing as a trauma response can be manipulative. So, like, I absolutely get the sentiment of why a lot of people were upset about it, but I really like shut down. My nervous system shut down because I was like, oh, I'm a bad person. I noticed I wanted to defend myself. I noticed that I was scared of like causing harm. And so I just kind of like broke down. I know a common thing that was popping in my head at the time was, this is too much. This is too much. This is too much. This is too much. I want it to stop. I want it to go away. And that was really just my body showing me what my capacity was at the time. And I didn't have as much capacity as maybe I thought I did around being able to hold two truths at the same time without taking it personally. Like I said, I'm a codependency coach, so I am a recovering people pleaser, and I don't want to upset people, and I want people to like me deep down. Those are my core wounds. So it was a really beautiful opportunity for me to uh anchor a little bit more deeply into what I practice and what I teach and what I work really hard to embody. And it took me, I think it was like a year, close to a year, of really tending to my nervous system and feeling safe again. I was still posting content throughout that year. I didn't like completely go ghost mode, but I definitely struggled for a good few months. I was maybe only posting like once a week when I was posting like every day because that was my capacity at the time. I really let my focus be like, okay, what's really going on here for me and how can I tend to myself so that when this happens again, I can hold it.
I'm really curious, before you went viral, did you have the experience that so many business owners have where it's like I'm posting and posting and posting and it feels like nothing's happening for a period of time and then you go viral and like your system has been like, wait, I'm used to posting and nobody looking, posting and having no reaction, posting and now that suddenly everything's blowing up, I have no idea how to orient. Is that an
Mm-hmm.
experience you had as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're posting for me it felt like years. I was posting for years with no comments. I was posting for years with, less than 20 likes on a reel or on a post. 30 story views. Like all those things. And I really that time, those couple of years where I was posting and getting, quote unquote no response, one like is a response. But I think that that was really a huge part of my practicing non-attachment that I really actually appreciate that I had the experience with. Like I still posted even when no one was looking because it wasn't necessarily for the likes or the follows or the comments. It was about the impact I was having on myself. And, my soul's mission and purpose is to heal the mother wound, which is to like be seen, be heard, speak up, speak my truth, be witnessed in it. And so, really, what I'm doing on social media is healing that for myself. And I think that that period of time where there was no one on the no one on the other side of it, that's been a huge part of my healing journey. And so when I got the opposite of that and there's tons of eyes, you start seeing like, oh wow, my healing journey is actually impacting other people and their healing journey as well. And then it gets to be the cherry on top is like what I say to my clients.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's I'm having like an insight mid-conversation, which I love. This happens
I
so
love
frequently
it.
talk with you. But it's like it's always seems to be a hurdle to adjust to any level of visibility that is unfamiliar.
Mhm.
So for a lot of business owners, when you're first marketing and posting and it feels like nothing's happening or not fast enough or people don't care, like it takes a period of time to like adjust your nervous system and your self view and your understanding of your worth so it's detached from those results. But then what
Yeah.
I think is interesting that happens is that sometimes we find a sense of safety then. Like, oh, okay, I know how
Hmm.
to handle it when only 10 people look at this. Okay,
Hmm.
I know how to handle that. And then like we almost hold ourselves back from growing because we found safety in this familiarity. And then if we suddenly have a lot more views or suddenly have an influx of clients, it's it's like a new adjustment for the nervous system and our self-view and our value. That's as hard as the first one when we felt like no one cared, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. But at the same time, but at the same time, can you see the gift in that? Because if you went from 0 to 100, that's going to feel super intense. Where going from 10 to 100, that's 90, right? Or even like 50, that's only halfway. So it's still intense, but it's not as intense as if it were from 0. So like I could see the thought process of like, oh, we hold ourselves back, but it's like actually cultivating safety at that level is the step forward. And in feeling safe at that place, you are then readying yourself for that next level, that next jump. And it's not going to be as detrimental to your nervous system. Maybe detrimental is too dramatic of a word, but it's not going to be so heavy on your nervous system as starting at 0 would have been.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I actually had like an episode called The Gift to Slow Business Growth where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
the reason I wasn't getting the results I wanted is because I was fully not ready to
Yeah.
like, be able to hold that.
Hmm.
I think like that's an interesting level of awareness. I know I didn't have like what's the difference between is my nervous system adjusting to what I am at capacity for, or am I like, okay, I've mastered this level, let's stay here.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, here's the thing is we all have free will. So like so once you get to that place where like I've mastered this, all you really have to say is I'm ready for the next thing.
yeah.
And then it will come. And it's not like it's going to come tomorrow morning, although it could, but it's like I finally said can happen really fast. I said at the end of December, I'm ready. Like I'm ready. I feel really safe now. I've got the capacity to hold more. I'm ready to hold more. And literally January 10th, I got like thousands of followers. I had a post go viral on Instagram, and then I had another one, and then I had another one. And then within a month, I had like over 10,000 new followers. And then that tripled and doubled. But like I set that intention forth. I said, I'm ready. Like I'm done thinking that I'm not ready.
Ooh, I love that. So good. Okay. I'm curious. So, when you said your first time you went viral, it broke you. So,
Yeah.
it affected you.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, did you have awareness of how it was affecting you, or were you like, I'm sliding into some interesting habits? I wonder why. Like, what was your
Hmm.
level of awareness at the time about how it was affecting you?
Yeah, it was pretty immediate because I have done so much of my work is around somatics. So my body was somatically having a reaction to the amount of visibility that I was having at the time. Meaning I know that my triggers, my somatic triggers when I'm dysregulated are that my ears get really hot, I start losing feeling in my fingertips, I get shallow breathing, I have these mental indicators where like I want to go into defending myself or um, I tell myself that like there's something wrong with me or I'm bad. I start having like a lot of intrusive thoughts. And so all of those things were happening for me at that time. So I knew immediately that my nervous system was dysregulated and I was struggling like holding what was happening for me. And so I immediately when I know what to do when my nervous system is dysregulated. I took a huge break. I stopped forcing myself to make so much content. I spent way more time in nature. I went outside a lot more. I connected with people in my community. I just like allowed myself to nourish myself during that time. And I saw it really as a gift and like talking about growing our capacity, right? And getting to like 10 instead of starting at 0, I was like, okay, if this is going to continue to get bigger, I have to know how to navigate and manage what comes up for me when I get the trolls or when I get the hate comments. And so, fast forward to this year when I had my reel on Instagram I mean, now it's like, I think at over 11 million views. It's the most views I've ever had on anything, even on TikTok. And most of those comments, the majority, if there's 10,000 comments on that post, 9,000 of them are people telling me that I'm a terrible person. And I'm just like, I've never had that much like negative comments on a post versus, positive ones. You know how there's usually more positive ones, but we fixate on like the few negative ones tends to be the recipe, but this one is like no, it's majority people are like really upset with what I said. And I'm unbothered. I know that sounds wild, but I really am unbothered because I can see where all of these people are coming from and why they're saying what they're saying. I actually have a huge amount of compassion for every single one of those comments, and I do not take them personally. But that I think is attributed to the amount of work I've done and capacity work that I've done that I can hold two truths at the same time.
Oh, that is so hope-giving for all the recovering people pleasers out there. You could get to a point in your healing where you get 9,000 negative comments and unbothered as a people pleaser.
Oh.
Imagine. Um,
I know, I'm so curious. I'm like, how many comments are actually, I'm sure 9,000 is just like totally not even close. I'm probably is only like 100, but it feels like 9,000.
yeah. So, and you said for the first post of yours that went viral, was this the first time you got like a lot of negative feedback that you had to like see directly on your feed the first time you went viral?
Yeah.
So, what was that like? Did you need to implement some new self-care systems, some new
Mm-hmm.
boundaries? How
Mm-hmm.
did learning how to navigate visibly seeing negative reaction to your work affect you? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a good question too, Isa. The answer is yes, I absolutely had to implement boundaries. That first time I went viral, I noticed the somatic things that I was sharing. My ears were on fire, and they still do this to this day. If I get a negative comment or someone's calling me out, or, calling me out in their own way, like trying to drag me through the mud, my ears get hot. It's like that's what happens immediately. They get hot. And the first time I went viral, I noticed that I wanted to go respond to all the comments to like defend myself or try to like, I felt misunderstood. That's what ends up happening. Like, we feel like the people who are leaving those comments aren't understanding what we're really trying to say. But what I've learned is that like they don't want they don't want to understand what we're saying. They benefit from not understanding, quite frankly. They benefit from making us wrong or making us like the bad guys. So the boundaries that I had to place for myself. And then there's the question actually, like, do I block these people? Do I delete their comments? And I just thought in that first, viral piece of content, okay, well, what if I keep going viral? And how many hours am I going to spend blocking people, deleting comments, or responding, trying to defend myself? Like, that's not sustainable. So I was like, what if I just allowed it to be so and I just grew my capacity to hold all of it, right? And so my boundaries for myself are if I feel the need to defend myself as a response to a comment, then that's not a comment that I'm supposed to respond to. So I don't respond to any of the negative comments. Sometimes, every once in a while, I feel called to like witness them. Like, thank you so much for sharing your experience with me. I see you. That's not for every single one, but sometimes like I will feel called and I just allow my intuition to guide me. Um, for for Instagram, the 11 million view one, I just had to like not look at comments for a while, It's just like I'm just not gonna look at them today. Or you get really good at like sifting through them and just like not take, I don't know. It's just like that's not about me, not taking it personally. Not to say that there weren't moments where I was like, damn, so many people think this. Maybe I am like, maybe I am this terrible person, right? Uh, and in which case I do the work that you've heard me and witnessed me do over and over again. I do shadow work around it. I do inner child healing around it. I just see it as opportunities to meet myself more deeply.
Yeah, and you mentioned like increasing your time in nature. Did you need to like
Hmm.
be like, I know how that I need a new level of self-care when my stuff goes viral?
Hmm.
Okay, so time
Yeah.
and like
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I don't necessarily feel it so much lately. And that just might be because I've like just normalized so much of this. but I live next to a park. So I, yeah, would spend time outside if I noticed I was really getting down on myself. I would allow myself to journal. I would allow myself to process out loud. I have a partner who is, a great space holder, and I'll just be like, I just need to vent. I don't need you to fix this, but I just need to say some of these things out loud. And, he'll hold space and I'll just be like, this person said this, and da 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 da. And, someone told me they think I should die. Like, this is fucked up. Why are people saying, like, just really letting myself get it out and like have that anger and rage process through without projecting it onto somebody else.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, not that you're getting horrible comments, but you have a way, you have systems in place for how to like get it out of your body and out of your head.
hmm
Did it affect at all well, it sounds like you needed a break for self-care, but did it affect your willingness to be visible or vulnerable or market your business or share your voice at all? Did you have
hmm
to do any work to build that back up after the first time you went viral?
Yeah, after the first time, I had to remind myself why I'm making content in the first place.
Mhm.
And I think as a business owner and as someone who has a message or has, this desire to reach the masses and be in service, is that we're always going to have to come back to our why. And our why has nothing to do with a number, like whether that number be money or followers or likes or views on a video. That's not why we're doing any of this. And if it is, then you're going to constantly be disappointed. Like that's a guarantee. So whenever I would go into doubt or whenever the fear would take over and be like, it's not worth it, I would have always just come back to like, what's my mission? What's my mission? What's my purpose? Why did I start this in the first place? I didn't start it because I wanted to be liked. I started it because I wanted to heal the mother wound for myself, within myself. And if other people benefit from that, then that's the cherry on top, that's the bonus. And so I have to keep doing it for myself, right?
Totally. So I think like one other thing I forgot to put in the pre-show questions I sent you, but I wanted to ask you about is I know a big fear for a lot of people is trolls,
hmm
which we covered, but another big fear is like messing up in public or like
hmm
having people come at you with like valid criticism and like how
hmm
to navigate that. I'm wondering if that's ever been part of your experience and if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's always a part of my experience because I will never claim that I've like learned it all. I think that other people's responses are valid and valuable, right? And so when, for example, people have criticized my use of the word manipulation, for example, I take that into consideration and I'm like, yeah, I wonder what other words I could use to describe this. Not that I need to change myself, but to be curious enough to explore what it is that they're saying and see if there's another way and take accountability when maybe I did do like say or do or move in a way that was maybe out of integrity. This actually happened recently. I responded to somebody's comment and I didn't mean to say it in a condescending way, but when I reread it, I was like, "Whoa, that doesn't sound like me." Like I said something like there's something called unconditional love, like which is just kind of like I don't know. I can see how the way that somebody else might read that would would be like a turn off. And it's definitely not what I was trying to communicate. And I went back and like was like, hey, I've just reread this comment and this is, I just want to apologize. I took responsibility for it. I think that messing up in public is just like it's a given. And the more that you actually make the repairs and like allow yourself to be seen in those mistakes, I think that's like one of the most valuable things that we can do as like content creators or people who are on these platforms to to put out there that you have to be perfect in order to get something or in order to receive something is not something that has served us in this generation. And it's certainly not something that I want to model.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep trying to tell folks like you will mess up in public if you have a
Yeah.
public aspect of your life. It's inevitable. But you
Yeah,
won't die. And like
exactly.
you won't die, and I trust you to be able to bring the same integrity you bring to the rest of your work to addressing any mistakes you make. I trust you to know
Hmm.
when to make a repair or
Hmm.
to, keep some distance and learn the lesson and move on. But I do understand like that's a scary feeling for a lot, especially for people who have people-pleasing tendencies, because probably
Hmm.
historically it wasn't safe to make mistakes. So,
Hmm.
but that's definitely something you'll have to wrap your head and nervous system around, if you're going to be living a public life. Um,
Hmm.
I am curious, you mentioned it's easy to fixate on like the one negative comment instead of the 100 positive ones. Did you have to implement any sort of system for yourself to make sure you are like receiving the positive feedback or acknowledging it or like making a note in your body, in your nervous system of that as well?
Yeah, there was a time where I had like a folder on my phone that's like positive, like it was like positive feedback or something where I took screenshots of people's comments or DMs that they had sent me about the impact, the positive impact that I was making on their life. And when I was really struggling in growing my capacity, like that was something that I really leaned on to just help me remember like this is helping people, this is supporting people, and this is having a positive impact in people's lives. So having something like that, even though I'm like not a huge advocate for external validation, it can be really helpful to hold on to or have something to refer back to when we're maybe in those spirals of doubt.
I love that. I have a file of Fabulous. It's like a notebook where I
Yeah.
right, like there's something about handwriting it down that helps me like integrate it more. Um, that's awesome. Is there anything we haven't covered yet that you would want like entrepreneurs to be aware of about the experience of going viral, that and how to emotionally prepare for it?
Yeah, I think something that was coming through earlier that I wanted to say, in regards to your like, oh, what kind of things did you need to implement to help support you when these things were happening? I want you to know that those answers are going to be different. Like my answers are going to be different than Issa's answers. It's going to be different than your answers. And the way that you figure out what exactly do I need, what exactly does my nervous system need to support me in growing my capacity to feel safe and visibility is a question that you get to ask your body and ask yourself through shadow work and inner child healing. So like if there's a fear of failure or if there's a fear of being seen, like you get to ask yourself that question. If I'm seen, then what am I afraid will happen? Right? If I go viral, then what am I afraid will happen? If my business goes into this next level, up level, right? What am I afraid will happen? And just getting to the root, like, are you afraid of failure? If I fail, then what does that mean? What am I making this mean about me? And then going into where does that fear live in my body? And what does that part of me need? Right. So that changes for me all of the time. So I always ask myself those questions when I start noticing fears or doubts come in. Use intrusive thoughts that come in when you do get those comments or you don't get the comments too, right? Either way, use those fears and those doubts that are coming in as your access point for healing because those are actually the things that are going to help you grow your capacity.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And then I'm also wondering if for folks who are like, I'd like to be able to have that healthy separation that you mentioned, where when you're receiving hate comments or other people projecting on you, or just a lot of negativity, you seem to have this like really clear boundary where you're like, that's them, not me. I
Yeah.
don't have to. Do you have any advice for folks who want to build that up for themselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna use the analogy that I shared in the squad too.
Yeah.
So when you're stepping into your most authentic expression of self, when you're putting content out there for the world to see, I want you to imagine that you're a light, right? Like when you're your most authentic expression of self, and that's your most authentic expression of self is any piece of content you put out. So whether that's a newsletter, whether that's a podcast episode, whether that's, a reel, you're putting yourself out there. You're going to exist as this light. And the thing is you're going to come across two sets of people. You're going to come across a set of people who have been fumbling around in the dark looking for this specific light, and they're going to find you magically because the universe is just bringing your people to you all the time. And they're going to be the ones in the comments or in your DMs that are like, thank you so much. This spoke to me. I really needed to hear this. This was so supportive. They're the ones that are like, thank you so much for your light because I've been looking for one forever, right? They've been praying for that, for someone to say it just exactly how you said it. They might have heard it 500 billion times, but the way you said it, like, landed for them, right? So there's those people. We love those people. Those people keep us going. But then you have the other subset of people where they've also been fumbling around, but they're not looking for a light. They're they're comfortable, right? Being in the dark. They are not interested in looking at themselves in the mirror. And then they come into contact with your content and they're like, whoa, bitch, you are too bright. Dim the fuck down because I'm uncomfortable. This is scary. I don't want to see what you're illuminating for me. And so they're going to try to dim you, right? They're going to dim you by whatever it is that they say, their harsh remark, their judgment, their blame, whatever it is, because they just want you to go back into your box where you don't expose your light, right? So do you see how that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their discomfort with your light? But the thing is no one can dim your light unless you agree, right? Unless you agree to it. So when I get those comments of people saying, hurtful things, I have a choice to agree to it and make myself smaller, or I have a choice to see them with compassion, right? This is someone who's been fumbling around in the dark and they're just terrified, right? They think they just saw a monster. Like that's the way that I see it. Like they just think that someone came in to come and like kill, harm, you know, hurt them. So they're trying to make it go away the only way they know how. The only way they know how. So the way that I see it is like I just see them with those compassionate eyes like this is scary for you. And then I'm not taking it personally. I actually have a lot of love for them.
Ooh, that's so. I felt like a physical reaction to you talking like that. I was like imagining hate comments or trolls I've received and how all my walls go up and then just being like, "Oh, you just saw a monster. You're like
Yeah,
your inner child right now." And I felt like my
exactly.
body relax.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I can't possibly imagine what you had to endure that has made you so hateful or hurtful or in so much pain that you would inflict that upon somebody else. Like I can't possibly imagine what has happened in your life that has created that for you.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify for listeners, we're not saying that behavior is okay or that it's
Absolutely not.
we're not saying it's your responsibility to comfort them or like
No.
walk them into the light. I think like speaking of personal boundaries, like choosing to view it that way instead of like everyone's out to get me, like I'm gonna borrow that view of it, Alyssa, because it made my body feel better.
Yeah.
So like making decisions about how you want to view trolls or negative feedback that supports you, however it does,
Mhm.
however it makes your body feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for naming that because I think that that can be a misconception like, oh, now I'm accepting that behavior. And this is like a very interesting thing that I think collectively we brush up against is like, well, if I don't put them in their place, they're going to keep doing it to other people. It's like you're not the savior. That's not your job. It's not your job to show them the harm that they cause. Your silence is teaching them more than you bringing them into the light or you trying to get them on your side, right? The more energy that we give them by interacting, the more that they learn that that behavior works.
Oh, such a good point. Yeah. And it's so rough because like I feel like back in my earlier days, I'd just be like, but it's not fair. Must
Mm-hmm.
restore justice.
Mm-hmm.
But like the cost to me of
Yeah, exactly.
the drain of trying to like engage with this toxicity was not good. Was not good.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, so just to switch gears a little bit, so in the squad, you made a really interesting point, which is so true, that you said that followers are not the same thing as dollars. Expand on that. What did you learn about that when you went viral?
Yeah, I had all of these misconceptions. If you're in the content creation coaching world, there's just like there's so many things, expectations that I think I adopted. Like I thought when I had 10,000 followers, that would mean I would be making well over $10,000 a month, right? Like I thought that these numbers meant that I was going to reach these like income milestones that I had put on pedestals. And when I grew on TikTok to over 300,000 followers, my income didn't do it. Like it didn't do anything, like I wasn't making $300,000. I wasn't even making $1,000. And that was my income for a very, very long time. And even now, I'm maybe 1,000 or 2,000 followers away from 500,000 across platforms. And I'm not making $10,000 a month. Like that's just the reality. So I think for me, I really in the beginning had to see what numbers and metrics I had put on all these pedestals. When I get this many followers, that means I'm going to be successful. When I get this many followers, that means I'm going to make enough money to pay my bills. When really like that was just constantly shown to me like they are not one and the same. And the more that I and obsess and fixate on those metrics, the more it takes me away from my actual mission and actually keeps me like seeking outside myself, right? And I basically spent all of 2023 in that place, in that mindset. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. Why is it not working? It's not working for me. It works for all these other people. They have less followers than me and they make more money than me. What's wrong with me? And I was just like, why am I focusing on these things? It's not helping me. It's not supporting me. Can I just realize that it has nothing to do with all the numbers and just focus on my mission and focus on why I'm doing this work in the first place? And that's when everything monetarily started taking off because I just started doing things that I loved and stopped giving a shit about like certain metrics that just don't fucking matter.
Yes.
So yeah, so what I really mean by it is like
Yeah.
I have one of my best friends who has, 1,000 followers and made almost like $500,000 in her business. I haven't even gotten to like a fourth of that in 3 years. So it's like it really isn't a metric for success.
Yeah, I'm curious. I know you take an approach that I really appreciate where it's like mission driven first for the content you
Hmm.
create. I am curious whether you've noticed a difference between the type of content you make that goes viral versus the type of content you make that generates sales.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I should know the answer to this question, and I don't. And sometimes I judge myself for not knowing all of like conversions. But I think that there are certain pieces of content that bring people into my world, and I have intention behind my content. Like there's certain pieces of content, like shorter reels, that I put out to grow my audience. So I set the intention that like I want to bring people into my world so that they can learn about what it is that I do in the first place. And then I have other pieces of content that I call like nurturing content where I'm answering questions from people in the comments. This is people getting to like see me and how I talk, how I coach, how I support people, the way that just like my personality, And I think I don't know. I think that those pieces of content probably convert more than like my 6 second reels. Although my 6 second reels do convert when I have the call to action be like my freebie or the
Mhm.
podcast.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I'd love to add some nuance to that if you're okay with it, and also for folks.
Please.
I think a lot of my listeners have coaching or similar service-based businesses where it's generally a bit of an investment to like take part in a mastermind or one-on-ones. And for that type of customer, it's a really normal customer journey for someone to start following you in some way, shape, or form and like be paying attention for literally months before they're ready to say yes. So it's easier to trace, like I saw some cute boots on a TikTok and then I bought the boots. It's a lot easier to be like this post converted, but for folks with services like ours where it's higher ticket, it's an investment specifically in working with us. I don't think we can say one piece of content converted them or tipped them over
Hmm.
the scales. It's like we've spent time nurturing them. We've spent time
Hmm.
allowing them the opportunity to get to know us and our style and what it's like to work with us beforehand. So it's like it's not the one piece of content
Yeah.
created, it's like all of the content that for us
Yeah.
to be ready to work with us.
Oh my gosh, I 1000% agree. I 1000% agree. Honestly, before this last launch of Codependency Alchemy, the Mastermind, every sale that I had pretty much made, especially in regards to like my group containers, all of them sold like on my Instagram stories. Like that was probably the thing that converted the most for me. Up until this last mastermind. I did an email sequence and I actually sold out spots mostly through email. Like people clicked on the link and subscribed through email. And that was the first time that that had ever really happened. So I was like, oh, whoa, this like totally flipped it on its head for me a little bit where I'm like, oh, I don't have to just sell on my Instagram stories. Like this converted.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's the platform that converts is different for a lot of people. Like I have a client
Yeah.
like, wow, Facebook is my bestseller. Like I've had email for my bestseller for a while. You've had stories. So like I think it depends on like where you have relationships with people or where you
Mm-hmm.
feel they can reach you. Um, but I also just want to put out there in case anyone's like, I don't know how to tell which of my content converts and you have a bigger ticket program. It's probably not just the last piece they saw.
Yeah.
And you specifically have it in your marketing strategy to have come into my world content and nurturing content, which
Yeah.
that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting. I'm curious, what do you feel like the lessons you've learned in how you run your business have shifted since becoming visible on a much bigger scale? What are like the takeaways, and if you had to make any changes to your business due to that new level?
Mm. I think like the biggest takeaway is something that I practice and I wouldn't necessarily say I would do more of it because I think I've really done this throughout my entire business is like just be willing to fail and be willing to pivot and be willing to do it as soon as you know it's true for you. Um, Meaning like I have a membership currently, but that membership has taken probably like 9 different fucking forms within the last year. It was like first it was on this platform and then I switched it to this platform and then I switched it to this platform because I didn't like there were things that I was learning through the doing process. Like there's certain things that you just can't know until you do it. And I think that my fear of upsetting people with all of the changes kept me from doing it maybe as quickly as I would have as soon as I knew I didn't like it or as soon as I knew that it wasn't going to work. Because you reach a certain point where you're like, this isn't sustainable. It's sustainable with 10 people, but my question I constantly ask myself, especially because my intention is to reach the masses, I ask myself, what does this look like with 100, 1,000, 100,000? Can I do it? And I was running a membership on a Telegram channel. Like, no, I cannot do that. Back end, back end was taking, making sure people get in the Telegram channel, making sure I remove people from the Telegram channel, like all of the things was taking more time than the time I was spending with people in the membership. Like, it's like that doesn't scale. So, but I was so afraid that I was going to upset people from changing it again and again and again. I'm like, oh, I just changed it, but I've already learned that this isn't going to work. Well, I can't change it already. But it's like, no, sis, if you know it's not going to work, then like just change it. There are going to be people who fall off. Don't take it personally, but it's making room for the people who are going to come in.
Totally. I just realized I've been in your membership a while. So I was like, oh yeah, we
Yeah.
have over a few platforms. I'm curious if
Yeah.
there's a similar process, like personally, that had to happen as your client base grew to be like, there's more people counting on me. There's more
Mm.
people wanting my individual attention. There is more people who have expectations of me. Or was it kind of the same process as the like on social media? Or what did you have to do to protect your energy and your capacity as your client base grew?
Ooh, this question's really interesting. Um, I literally, this is gonna say, I know this how this is gonna sound, but I'm just gonna say it this way anyways. I literally can't think about other people. Like I just have to think about myself and like what works for me. Does this make sense? So I don't think about other people's expectations on me. I don't think about how I have to show up for other people. I don't think about like what people are hoping I do or what they're not. I just like I can't be in that place because it will immediately take me out of authenticity. Like I can only think about myself. Um, and like in doing so, I'm always gonna show up authentic and in a way that is sustainable for me. So other people might have expectations, but I cannot even consider that, I guess.
Oh, I love that. Oh, okay. So you just made me realize I've had like people pleasing creeping into my business a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm so drained and have no energy.
Yeah. And that's what people pleasing does, right? Like if we use my analogy of the house, right?
Yeah.
When you're thinking about other people's expectations, you're in their house cleaning up their space and like being like, okay, what is it that you want from me? What is it that you want from me? What is it that you want from me? That's like not sustainable. And I don't create content like that either. Like someone the other day asked me, how do you know what kind of content to create for people? And I'm like, I don't know what content to create for other people. I make content for me. And if it lands for somebody else, that's great.
Oh, that's such a good point. And I just realized like I was having like a personal like, Issa, what is because normally I'm a pretty decisive person. I can like feel pretty instantaneously whether it's a yes or a no. And I'm like, why can't I make decisions? And I'm like, oh, because I'm crowdsourcing them. That's
Mm-hmm.
but
Uh,
it's it's funny, like, I mean, like your work is literally self-awareness. But if it wouldn't surprise me, and I hope you don't get down on yourself if you notice some old habits you've been working to break creep into your business because it's a lot to become cognizant of at once.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why compassion and grace is such an important piece of this work and being an entrepreneur too, right? And healing codependency, because without it, you sit in a mountain of judgment and shame, right? And that doesn't move anything either. Like that just feels heavy. And so I'm constantly noticing where my people pleasing patterns show up in my business. I'm constantly noticing where I'm overgiving or where I'm self-sacrificing. I just noticed it this last month, which is why I took a break from the podcast because I was like, what I'm doing is not sustainable. I can't write a robust fucking newsletter and put out a podcast episode every single week for the next year. Like I've been doing it for the first 3 months, and I wouldn't take that back because the content actually that I created was intentional. I wanted it to be like evergreen content where if somebody DMs me what's codependency, I have a whole newsletter that I can send them. But when I was thinking about Q2 content, I was like, can I keep that up? And I was like, I can't. I had a feeling like I needed to. So I guess actually my answer to you was quite wrong because I was thinking like people have gotten a newsletter and a podcast every single week for the last, who I don't even know how long, months and months and months. What's going to happen if it changes? But it's just like, well, at the end of the day, I can't keep doing it like this. It's gonna break me. I'm gonna burn out.
Oh, that's such a good point. And like not that I'm happy you had a challenging experience, but I think it's healing for people to hear like even someone whose like life's work is helping people establish self-awareness can have old habits or patterns creep up that we aren't immediately aware of. And then
Hmm.
what you said about having grace and compassion when you realize that's what's happening, like notice she didn't say, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I fucked up. I like terrible at this or whatever. Like, no, none of that negative, like inner critic talk. It was the grace and compassion, like, oh, now I see what's happening here. We can pivot.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 It was like, okay, this was really good and this made sense for this season of my life. But when I thought about April, like when I started content planning for April, my body had this like physical response where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, okay, well, then that means that what I'm doing isn't sustainable. So like, how can I pivot? And I didn't know how I was going to pivot. Like, I didn't know it up until like 3 days ago. Like, it's like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And then over time, it just became more clear. And now I'm going to try something new. And I can almost guarantee you by the end of this year, it'll look different again.
Yeah, and oh, it's so interesting. I'm realizing that I don't want to do that. Feeling is such an indicator we need to pivot, but it can be scary, especially if you're going against advice. Like I realized I was having that feeling a lot when I was trying to follow mentors who I love and respect advice that didn't fit or align with me.
Hmm.
I was doing something differently and they were telling me like, no, this is what you have to do. And this is like blah, blah, blah. And I had to go on a little journey with myself and be like, if my body is being like, I don't wanna, then it's a no.
Yeah.
And they can have whatever thoughts they want to about that, but it's still a no for me.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have any words of advice or if that ever happened to you where you got advice in your business that was just wrong for you and realizing you had permission to say no to an expert or not follow an
Hmm.
expert's advice.
Yeah. 100%. I've absolutely been there. And I think that in the coaching world, especially, unfortunately, we're constantly told that like we need to invest. We need to invest in our business. We need to invest in coaches. We need to like, if you want big rewards, then you need to take big risks. And like, I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm sure there's a lot of instances where that is, but to to adopt these ideas and think the only way I'm going to get a big reward is with a big risk, like we're really hindering ourselves, and we're really like pedestaling these ideas that tend to make other people rich.
Thank you
Unfortunately.
for saying that. Yeah, I realize like I have like it's weird because I have two ends of my business. Like one is a consultant, like a traditional marketing consultant where people are literally paying me to tell them what to do. But in the cheerleading side of my business, I'm like, I want you to tell me no if it's wrong.
Mhm.
Like I want to
Yeah.
empower you to be able to figure out what's right for you and your business. And you're
Mhm.
gonna know better than me. Like I can tell you
Mhm.
tactics and strategies and things that have worked for other people, but like I don't ever want you to take my voice over your own inner truth.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I do the same thing in the solopreneur mastermind. Like people who are solopreneurs want to work with me because they've seen me do something successfully that they also want to do, whether that's start a podcast, write a book, grow their social media accounts, grow a membership. So I am teaching them what I've learned in those different areas of my own business, but you always have to filter it through your own channel, right? So sometimes filtering it through your own channel looks like trying it on and then realizing that's a no, and then being like, "Oh, I thought I wanted that, but I actually don't want anything to do with that." Great. Now we can pivot this way, and what does that look like? What does that feel like? Like just constantly be in curiosity, because a lot of times like we think we want something because we see somebody else having it and enjoying it, and then we adopt that dream as our own, when really that's not what we want to do at all.
Yes, 100%. And then I know we're right up against time, but like the last point I want to make that also if you are in some sort of coaching or mentorship role, when like you are inevitably going to give advice that is wrong for someone and being
Mm-hmm.
able to have the tools to not make that mean something about your expertise or
Yeah.
authority or the value of your work when you tell someone that something that is wrong for them and like growing the capacity for grace to be like, okay, I'm happy you know that for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's not personal. And that's where you have to like break down or detach from certain outcomes for clients. Like I get it all the time. Like, well, are you worried or do you stress out about like your clients not having like a certain type of outcome at the end? And I'm like, I don't promise anything at the end. I promise just to walk alongside you while you're navigating things, but I don't like everyone's on their own journey. So you can't possibly guarantee that somebody is going to reach a certain outcome at the end.
100%. And you don't have to sell it, just for
No.
right over there. You
Yeah.
absolutely don't have to promise an outcome to sell it.
No. But talking about the people who are getting rich, right? Like, um, hey, do you want to, earn passive income while you're laying on a beach in Mexico? That's a dream that people are selling and they're becoming millionaires off of it. But there's no such fucking thing as that. Like those people and if that passive income is a course, like you still have to market the course, you still have to create content for the course, you still have to do all this stuff to get it out. Like those people are working. They're not sitting on a fucking beach in Mexico, you know?
Team that they're paying to market it for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Um, all right. Well, I know I've kept you late. Alyssa, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here again with us to share your wisdom and experience. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. I always love these chats.
Likewise. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Check the show notes for how to follow and work with Alyssa and myself. And as always, I'd so love to hear your feedback and takeaways from today's episode. If you post about it, please tag us. And if you would like support and encouragement as you build the business of your dreams, you're invited to join the squad, a crew of excellently eccentric entrepreneurs cheering each other on to new heights as we do the impossible in real time. Plus, you get me as your on-call pocket marketing director. We've got an open house coming up on Monday, June 17th, where you can join our signature marketing confidence cheerleading session for free. This is an open business Q&A to unblock whatever is preventing your marketing from getting the kind of sales you want, need, and deserve. The link to register for free is in the show notes below, as well as how to follow me and Alyssa. All right, XOXO, lots of love. Bye for now.